Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. The Honorable Miss Ulfa Ramadini, MPD, as our lecturer. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Nurhanifah Haryanto, also known as Hani. I'm a student of the Faculty of Economic and Business, majoring in accounting at Bina Sarana Informatika, Kaliabang. Today, I will be presenting my Advanced English Mid-Semester Examination Assignment as instructed by Miss Ulfa. The first part of my video is to express my opinion about bad habits, and in the second part, I will explain the material about sequence adverbs. Talking about habits, we all certainly know about good habits and bad habits. In my opinion, both refer to small action that may seem trivial at first. The difference is, good habits bring benefits to ourselves and others, while bad habits can develop into serious problems if not controlled. Everyone surely has at least one bad habit, whether it's biting their nails, oversleeping, or spending too much time on social media. This habit might feel comfortable or fun, but in the long run, they can negatively affect our productivity, health, and social relationships. Bad habits often form without us realizing it. Frequently, they begin from laziness, stress, or simply the pursuit of short-term pleasure. The more often we do them, the more they become a part of our daily routine, even a part of our identity. But the good news is that habits can be changed. The key is self-awareness and the willingness to change. We must truly recognize our own bad habits before we can overcome them. I have an example that truly happened to me. Since I was a child, I had a habit of sleeping in strange and often extreme positions. Every morning, I would wake up with body aches, but then I felt like I couldn't change anything about it. But when I entered junior high school, I started thinking hard about changing the way I slept. I was too embarrassed thinking that my sleeping position may be making my friends uncomfortable. My bed used to look like this, so I intentionally pulled out only a small part of the lower bed and slept there. Then on the side, I built barrier using bolster. At first, it felt very uncomfortable because it was cramped and hot. But after about a week of entering it, the result was that I could sleep in a normal position until I woke up. Since then, I've never felt body aches when waking up in the morning. The sleep quality really helps improve mood. This small change taught me that overcoming bad habits doesn't have to start with something big. Sometimes it only takes small consistent actions. In addition, motivation is important. In my case, embarrassment was the initial trigger that grew into a strong desire to change for the better. From that, I learned that motivation can come from anywhere, and it's important to stay committed to the change we want to make. In conclusion, breaking bad habits is not easy. It takes time, discipline, and self-awareness. But I believe that with strong motivation and support from the people around us, we can overcome these bad habits. That's all from me about bad habits. Thank you. Hello everyone, so in this second part, I will explain what the sequence adverbs are. This is my personal data, which includes my student ID number and class. Next. Okay, so we will discuss the definition, function, types, rules, and example sentence. Next. Okay, let's start by talking about definition. So, sequence adverbs are words that help us understand the order of events that are happening in a narrative or text. Sequence adverbs tell us things like what happened first, what happened next, and what happened that was unexpected. Think of them as signal words that help us identify the next event and the end of story. Next. Here is the function of sequence adverbs. Sequence adverbs are used by showing the sequence of time or step, helping transition between sentence or paragraph, and emphasizing the chronology of events. Next. There are three different types of sequence adverbs. Beginning, used to indicate the first step or event in the process, story, or instruction. Continuing, used to state the next step after the initial one, help show the continuation or transition from one step to the next. And ending, used to indicate the final step or event in the process or story, provides a conclusion or ending. In the beginning, there are first, firstly, to begin with, and at first. In continuing, there are then, next, after that, secondly, and in the meantime. In ending, there are finally, lastly, in the end, and at last. So, in this slide, we will discuss the rules for using sequence adverbs along with example sentence. Let's go through them together. The first rule is use a comma after sequence adverbs when they introduce a sentence that describes an action. For example, next, comma, add some pepper, then, comma, wash the dishes with salt and water, finally, comma, let it cool before serving. So next, then, and finally is a sequence adverb used to start the sentence, so we use a comma after it. The second rule is use first to show that an action happens before others, and first can be placed at the beginning or the end of a sentence. For example, she wants to help everyone, but she needs to check her schedule first. First, she checks her schedule before making any appointments. The third rule is used next to indicate that an action happens immediately after another action or as soon as possible. It can also come both at the beginning and the end of a sentence. For example, I finished my homework, I will play video games next. I visited Japan last year. Next, I want to travel to China as soon as possible. The fourth rule is used then to express that an action happens after another action if it doesn't happen immediately. You can also use and then without comma. Note that then refers to a specific time in the future or in the past. For example, we will have lunch at the new cafe, then we will go shopping at the mall. He will watch a movie and then he will go to bed. The fifth and final rule is used finally to express that an action happened at the end, after other action, or after a long time. Finally can be used before the verb without a comma. For example, after months of training, he finally ran his first marathon. She studied for years, finally she became a doctor. I cleaned the entire house, finished my assignment, and finally relaxed with a cup of tea. Okay, now let's work on the example questions. We will answer the questions using the answer choices provided on the right. Okay, first, I've done all my homework, blah 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 blah, I can play games with my friends. The answer is finally. Why? Because the word finally shows that after finishing the homework, you can finally play. The answer for number 1 is B. Okay, next question. We visited Lombok last year, blah 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 blah, we were planning a trip to Raja Ampat. The most appropriate answer is next. Why? Because it indicates a sequence of activities, so after going to Lombok, the next plan is to go to Raja Ampat. The answer for number 2 is C. Okay, next questions. Blah 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 blah, wash your hands before eating. The answer is first. Why? Because the word first gives an instruction to wash your hands before eating. The answer for number 3 is A. Okay, done. I hope my explanation of this material is easy to understand. That's all the explanation from me. Thank you for your attention. I apologize if there are any mistakes in this video. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.